Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan,
Jessica Faust.
and today we are talking about R&Rs. So, Jessica, what is an R&R? Because it's just another acronym in publishing that maybe nobody knows
Yeah.
about.
Can I tell you that it was years that I worked in this business and didn't know what R&R meant? And R&R, so see, you're not alone.
It means rest
R&R
and relaxation, and we don't get that very often.
That's what we do only on Sundays.
Right.
R&R stands for Revise and Resubmit. And what I think one of the reasons I really wasn't aware of them is that I don't think they were that common. You know, I think that they are a more recent publishing phenomena.
They have become increasingly popular, and just in the time that I've started at BookEnds.
And I suspect they're more common in children's books, specifically picture books. But I think that because picture books are shorter, I never saw them in adult. I never in my years as an editor requested them. I did request some in my early years as an agent, but I guess I just requested them. I didn't think of them as R&R.
Right.
I just did hand quotes.
Would you be interested in revising this year?
Right. But anyway, so they've definitely seemingly become more common. But it is a request that, or the suggestion or the offer, I guess, that if you revise this book, I'd be willing to take another look. You can resubmit it. It usually goes along with some very specific suggestions and thoughts by either the editor or the agent on what they would want you to do to show that you can do it. So, for example, if the pacing seems off, they may ask you to give you some very specific suggestions on what you need to do in the plot to fix the pacing, but they feel they need to see it to see that you can do it before they could make an offer.
Right. And just to say, too, this can come from an agent or an editor. So it can come from an agent in the querying process. It can come from an editor in the submission process before they acquire something. So this is definitely something that you can see in any stage of publishing.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate what you said. It's before they acquire. Once you get an agent or get an editor, revisions will be a natural part of the process.
Yes, exactly. So this is more like conditional revisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's a lot to consider when you're doing an R&R. And I kind of want to talk with you about like the different levels of consideration. And I think the first one is probably the vision. Does this editor or agent's vision even remotely line up with yours?
Yeah, and I guess what we're saying here is that we don't think you should do every R&R.
Exactly.
That it's a should I do this R&R before you take the step to act?
Right. It's almost like having a checklist of questions for every single revision request.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, vision is the first thing. And for me, it's, can you read those notes that agent or editor sent you, and do you get them?
Yes.
And if you're reading those notes and you're like, that's all in there, I don't get what you want, then my suggestion is maybe that's not the R&R for you to tackle.
Exactly. Or is it too general or too, like, it's not specific enough that you can really feel that it's actionable?
Right. So at the end of the day, it's your book, but you also have to be the one to rate it.
Right.
And editors and agents can suggest a million things, but if those million things don't align with your vision for the book or what you think you're capable of doing or what you are capable of doing, then you can rewrite all you want, but it's probably not going to be successful.
Right.
So a good example of an R&R, which actually was not an R&R, but when I offered, and I know I've told the story on the blog before, I've probably told it on YouTube before, but when I offered representation to Melissa Payne for her first book.
Oh, I remember this call. I was in the office for it.
It was like an hour long.
Yeah.
She had submitted to me a mystery. And I felt her book, there are just elements of that book of writing that was so beautiful it took my breath away. but the plotting and the mystery aspect for me just wasn't working. So I got on the phone with her and I told her that I was offering representation because those pieces of writing that were so beautiful, I really felt I could work with. But to me, the plot needed to change completely. Like there were, I think, almost entire characters we took out. We completely redid the whole plot. And then it was an hour-long phone call of, this is my vision for the book. And if you agree, I'd be happy to work with you. But if that's not your vision of the book, then I don't think we'd be a good match.
Right. And we love our metaphors here, right? So you buy a house and you bring in an interior designer to redo your entire house. If they want to put bright yellows and greens and purples that you don't like, you're not going to want to do that. If they want to go completely like modern and you love the classic look, you're not going to want to do that. So
Right.
It's taking every designer at their face level and their ideas. And is that something that I would want in my house? Is that something that I could live with?
Yeah, and also the flip side to that is if I hire a designer who only does contemporary modern design, but my aesthetic is really like Victorian, then that designer is not going to be able to do what I want. They're just not.
That's a great point. And to take it out of our metaphor, because we go into those really strongly, but to put it in a publishing aspect, is this an agent or an editor that you want to work with that is doing what you're doing and that you can see yourself being a part of, right? So if it's a publisher that's maybe doing more romance and they want this to be a little more romance space and that's not the space you want to go in, is that something, is it worth revising your entire book for that, maybe with a publisher you're not sold on or with an agent that maybe you did not particularly connect with? So that's definitely the second level of consideration. Is this not only actionable, but is it worth my time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like is the
absolutely.
end goal representation or an offer, is that something I'm going to be satisfied with? And if it's not, that's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be so desperate to get an agent that you're willing to do anything, because I will tell you right now, the authors who just think I'll do whatever they say tend not to be able to. The book, doesn't tend to match. I sort of keep repeating myself there, but so I guess the next thing to consider when doing the R&R is, when doing it, you need to have a really solid understanding of what a successful R&R needs to be to
Right.
take you to that next step, which is the offer.
Right. And it's nebulous, I think. And it's something it's like a moving target for every book. Right. But I think the most important thing is that you are keeping what everyone loved about your book and you're making that better, which it's a tall order to serve up. But like, you're keeping the initial feeling of the book, the tone, what makes your book yours and unique, but you're bettering the points that this editor or agent points out is not working for them.
I actually have sort of a more extreme.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I think you need to be prepared that what you're submitting, what you're resubmitting when you're done with your revisions, is a completely different book. I mean, in my experience, and maybe this is because I do adult and the manuscripts are so much bigger, that typically an R&R isn't something that the editor just wants polished. If they just want polished, that's something that they usually can offer on and move and polish with you. Typically, they see that there are problems or concerns that aren't working with the book overall. And to make it work, it's not just a matter of, toning down a character or, adding more sunshine to the days. It's literally like, maybe the entire plot's going to shift because the pacing is off in the first 100 pages. And when you do that, it's going to change the entire plot of the rest of the book. Or maybe the ending isn't working. And when you rethink the ending, it means actually going back to rethink everything that led up to that original ending because it's not going to work with the new ending.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
In my experience, when an editor is asking my client for an R&R, and I think the Melissa Payne story is a perfect example. That was a different book from the one I originally read. It is not the same book. And I think that my experience with editors is what they want changes the book dramatically from beginning to an end. So an R&R is almost taking that book and rebuilding it from the ground up.
Well, I think it's interesting because I actually think we're both right, and which makes it even harder
Yeah,
because
yeah,
no matter what, you want to keep that core of your book, right? Like
yeah.
and especially in picture books, we see this a lot because they're shorter. So I think we're coming at it from both sides. But a picture book, it's four or 5 pages, and it has a voice, it has a tone, like a
Yep.
sense of humor that editor is responding to. Almost in every case, the editor is really responding to that, or else they won't offer an R&R, right?
Right.
But some of their changes might shift your entire book. Like you're saying, it might change the plot. It might make you rethink something that's just not working in the beginning, and then it shifts the entire ending too. So I like that you said that because it's more of being flexible, but trying to keep the core of your book and keep what made it resonate with that editor or agent in the first place, which makes it even more of catching lightning in a bottle and even more of, that of a tall okay.
A tall order. No, it really is. And that is something. And so that leads us into sort of our final thought on R&Rs. So, I tend to be really resistant to R&Rs. And in fact, most of the time I will steer my authors away from them. And I have received R&Rs plenty of times and sold the books to another publisher without doing the R&R.
Right.
So that's also how subjective it can be. But my other feeling on it is that it's spinning in circles. I'm going to use a food analogy because we love them.
2 metaphors in 1 video.
To me, it's like baking the cake and you add too much baking soda. So now you try to offset that with a little more flour and maybe another egg and and the next thing you know, you just really have a goopy bowl of nothing.
Right.
Whereas if I just took that cake and put it away or baked it and suffered through it, but then baked a second cake with the right amount of baking soda, using what I learned from that first cake to fix the second one, to make the second one correctly
Right.
from the start, I'm going to have a better cake. And to me, books are the same thing. If I can take that R&R from that editor and think, okay, so what they're saying is my characters don't feel well-rounded enough. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel with that first book, I'm going to go into my second book and really pay attention to that as I'm writing. I think you're going to end up in a more successful, happier place, and you're moving your career forward because
Right.
ideally as a writer, with every book you're writing, you're getting better and better. And if you're stuck on that same book, I don't know that you're getting better and better.
Right. Yeah, and I think we as agents approach every R&R that way. Like, so every R&R request is different, and every R&R request is a conversation in which we consider all of these points. Is it something that aligns with your vision that you think you can do? Is it somebody you want to do it for? Is the timing right even? Are we in a position in the submission life where we might not have to do this R&R right now? There's a ton of other places we can go. Like, is it something that we have to do right now, or can we maybe come back to it, or whatever? But
Or is it right for your career?
right. Is this the right move right now for us
Right.
to throw our energy in? Or maybe are we at the end of our submission life and you're working on something new and exciting? So I think everything that we have said really boils down to make a decision for each individual book.
And that is one of the reasons, once you get R&Rs from editors and you have an agent, that is one of the best reasons to have an agent.
Yeah.
Is to have somebody to discuss this with who, your writing friends and your beta readers and your critique partners can also be a great source for that. But your agent is not going to look at it on a book-by-book perspective. Your agent is going to look at it from a career perspective. And that's an important part of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly that, because we get excited and we all want, oh my God, this could really work. Fingers crossed,
Right.
I'll have an agent, I'll get a deal. But it's a matter of stepping back and putting the business hat on and having a little more of a subjective or objective or whatever the objective is that we're looking for here. I confuse them all the time. But to know, like, this, I have to make a business decision right now.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't an excitement creative decision. Well, it is a creative decision, but right now I have to put my business hat on, and is this best for me in my career?
Right. Right. And that's where when you get an R&R, you should really be able to have that conversation with the agent instead of just, because we have seen, I think, especially in picture books, we have seen the same book get like 3 different R&Rs from 3 different editors that are 3 different things.
Right.
And that, you can't be now turning one book into 5. It's just it's not a good use of your time.
Exactly. And there's always going to be something that can be changed about a book in somebody's opinion. So does it resonate for you, and does it work for you? And when that book is on the shelves, is it still something that is your vision and something you're proud of? Because if it's not, then what's the point?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, well, we hope this was helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any other questions about R&Rs, put them in the comments and we'll go through and respond to them. But
and if you have any questions at all, you want us to do a video and put them in the comments.
Yes, that too. So don't forget to subscribe, and see you here again next week.
Bye.